think I
Official.
got
Okay. Yeah, well, Dave, Jeff, thanks, brother. Appreciate you making the time here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to have a little break in the day, so appreciate your time too.
You're out in the East Coast. Where, what
Yep.
state?
So I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Great state of Michigan.
Hmm.
Fantastic,
Shameless plug for your coffee cup here.
fantastic mug, by the way. You're outdoing me. I've just got the Ember deal here to keep my coffee hot. Are you a light roast, a dark roast? Are you a coffee guy? Does it matter
Yeah.
what's in the cup?
Oh, it very much. I have become a coffee snob in the last few years. Um, no, so we have an espresso machine, so I make an Americano. I'm very much a dark roast. Uh, Coffee should be thick like motor oil, like
Now, correct me if I'm wrong,
yeah.
because I don't know a lot about coffee, and I actually get into coffee really, really late in life. I didn't even start drinking it until I was over 40.
Okay. Yeah.
And but I heard, take that for what it's worth, that dark roast is looked down upon from coffee snobs because the beans are quote unquote burnt. Is that true or false?
Oh, very much. My brother-in-law is like a real coffee snob and does the like pour over and it's all science and stuff, right? And it's like light roasts and maybe a medium roast here and there and very much about like that flavor. I'm like, no, I like a very thick dark roast. That's my jam. So
I'm right there with you, man. I'm a dark
yeah,
roast guy.
yeah,
Yeah, like light roast, I can maybe get by with some medium roast, maybe,
yeah.
but light roast is terrible.
Yeah. Not a fan.
Does it?
I mean, that being said, if someone makes me a cup of coffee, I'm gonna drink it. But
Sure. Yeah, and you've got a pretty nice little machine that you make it with every morning.
we have like the I don't know, Breville. It's a decent coffee maker, but when before Bed Bath and Beyond went under, you could buy stuff on sale and use their massive coupons, so you get a nice
Oh,
thing for a
nice.
lot cheaper. And then you wonder why they went bankrupt because I guess everything was on sale all the time.
You know, my we bought one. I just drink 2 cups of the black coffee every morning,
Mhm.
and then I'm done. I'm good. My wife has 2 cups. She literally doesn't care about the flavor of the roast. She needs the caffeine.
Yeah,
I could drink it decaf, to be quite honest with you. Like I've actually grown to enjoy the flavor of the dark roast. And then after she has her 2 cups, she's got a machine like you're talking about, and she
yeah,
makes, I think it's an Americano every morning.
yeah,
And when she told me she was going to buy the machine, I'm frugal by nature. And I was like, oh, she told me the price, and I was like, well, I don't like that. That doesn't sound good at all. And then I did the math as to how frequently, because every morning she go to Starbucks to get this Americano.
yeah,
And I was like, huh. I was like, if you actually use this machine and you stop going to Starbucks, like if you do that for like, I don't know, 6 or 7 months, the machine is paid for itself, and now we're in the clear. And this was
yeah,
like a year and a half ago,
yeah.
and I bet she goes to Starbucks. I mean, an absolute minuscule fraction of what she used to. So it was like, all things considered, like a really good purchase.
Yeah. Yeah. That's been my experience too. I'm like half the time now, I'm like, I don't want to go out for coffee. I like what I got at home. I'm good.
Yeah, no joke. And the markup on coffee is crazy. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I'll go out to meet somebody at Starbucks every now and then, have a chit chat
yeah,
about something. And I just get, what do they call it? This a tall dark roast, just a
yeah,
small. It's like an exorbitant amount of money, let alone if you get a fancy drink. I mean, you got to
yeah.
take out a HELOC on your
Yeah.
home.
Yeah, that's my wife likes she'll get her lavender latte with oat milk and whatever. And I'm like, that was a $9 coffee. There we go.
And it's gone, and 15 minutes later, you're done drinking it, and
Yeah,
it's gone. Well, before this interview, I clicked on to, some info on you, and you wrote when I first started thinking about doing these, it was like
yeah,
last year before life got crazy, blah blah
yeah,
blah. And in that original email, when you said that you were interested, you
yeah,
said you've been doing crosses since 2010. I mean, now you're coming up on
yeah,
15 years, a decade and a half.
yeah.
How did you find it so early compared to most?
Uh, Luck of the draw. So I moved to Virginia Beach when I got out of school and moved in with a guy I knew from college. And he
I lived in
happened to be
Virginia Beach
doing,
about 11 years.
yeah, I think we ran in a few of the same circles there. So,
Okay.
um, Uh, but so he was going to a CrossFit gym, and I was like, I need to do something, man. I got some college weight I should probably get rid of, and we're living at the beach, so I got to do something. And walked into the CrossFit gym and was like, all right, yeah, we can do this. And the
Nice.
rest, as they
Okay.
say, is history. So
And since then, have you been relatively dedicated to it? You know, sometimes people have fits and starts, they lose interest, they become, running, bodybuilding, whatever for a while, then they come back to it. You know, how's it been? I mean, because 15 years is that's a while.
uh I mean, for the most part, I stuck with it. I did a marathon while I was down there, so there was a few months of like little CrossFit, more running, which was a miserable few months. uh, and then, so my wife and I traveled for just over a year. We backpacked around the world. We quit our jobs. I was 29 and was like, we're going to take a break, and we left. So not a lot of fitness happened over that year, but other than that, it's been pretty consistent for the last 14 years.
Okay, suddenly I don't care about CrossFit anymore. That
Yeah.
is one of the most interesting things I've heard. And also, 29, you
Yep.
and your wife, I'm going to assume you didn't have any children.
Nope.
And you just said the rat race is not fun.
Yeah.
And you both were wonderful enough, spontaneous enough, and crazy enough to say, yeah, screw it. Let's just quit our jobs and see what happens. I mean, but just talk to me about, I guess, well, we could stay on this for an hour. The
Yeah.
the decision to lead up to that, was it just, hey, I'm 29, life's about to get crazy, I've got an itch that I haven't scratched, or were you in a job that like you made you want to jump off a bridge?
A little of all of it. So my wife is much more adventurous than I am. She dragged me into it, and I had an absolute blast, and I'm very grateful she did. But so when we got married, we were very lucky that our parents helped us a little bit more than we thought. Some things didn't spend quite as much, and so we had a little bit of money left from that. And then we had been saving pretty diligently, right? So I had been at the
That's
time
very
for I'm an
un-American
engineer.
of you. You're supposed to spend and live way beyond your means. How dare you
I
save?
terrible, right? Um, So I'm an engineer. I got very lucky that I was working in a job that I got paid overtime, so I was making extra money. I was also cross coaching CrossFit on the side, so making some extra money. And so we had just been saving, and we were like, do we buy a house and double down on Virginia Beach, and this is where we want to stay forever, or do we not want to stay in Virginia Beach forever and we're going to do something else? And so we kept kind of going, well, I think we want to move back somewhere towards the Midwest, and so we were looking at stuff and then going, okay, well, we were going to stay in Virginia. And we're like, well, we're going to take a honeymoon. We're not going to do it right after our wedding. Like, we could take 2 weeks and go do something. And then we started looking and we're like, both of us worked for the federal government at the time. Like, well, there's this, we could do a leave of absence and like still have our jobs when we come back. We could go take a month and do some of Southeast Asia or go to Australia or something bigger. And it just kind of kept snowballing. And we're like, well, what if we did this? Well, what if we added that? And then we put up a map and we're putting pins in it of places we wanted to go. And then all of a sudden we're like, we could make this work. Like we could go for a while. Um, and so that's what we decided to do. We sold most of our stuff, the little bit of stuff we kept. We moved into my parents' basement and we loaded some stuff up in a backpack and took off.
Was it all joy or was there some serious nerves?
Oh, I was terrified. Like I am a very like you said you're frugal and didn't want to spend money on a coffee pot. Like I was like, man, I don't know about this. Like what if it doesn't work? What if we're screwed? What if this? What if my wife's like, we'll figure it out. We'll be all right. We'll figure it out. She's 100% right. Like it was 100% worth it. But oh yeah, I was terrified that like we were gonna end up living on the streets back because we were gonna be broke and not figure it out. So
What was the rough plan? I mean, was it a highly detailed week by week, you knew where you were going, or was there a rough plan and you just launched?
we had the first couple of months like rough planned out. So we knew um, when we were leaving and we planned out. A lot of it ended up tagging around. The world becomes a small place when you start asking, and we kind of tagged on to some other people's stuff. So my college roommate, his wife's mother, if that's not a convoluted train of stuff enough, is a first generation immigrant from Finland, and so all her family is still there. And we had been talking about going on vacation for them for a while, and they were like, "Hey, we're going to Finland for summer solstice. We're going to go see all these people and do all this. You guys should just come with us." We're like, "Well, I guess that's the start of it. We'll go to Finland and go from there." Um, so we did that, and then it worked out. Some friends of friends that live outside London were going to come to the States for a couple of weeks, and they're like, it'd be great if you could house sit for us for a little while. So we went and did that and hung out there, and then just kind of like had picked, like I said, we had a map up and pinned some places, and then just kind of were like, all right, well, this can be a rough trajectory around. And we just kind of tried to stay with flights and anything else you needed a few months out. But a lot of it was just kind of like, we'll just show up there and figure stuff out. So
And not quite sure how long you'll be at a certain location, or if something that you do there will lead you to a different trajectory or whatnot, like you allowed yourself a lot of flexibility.
yeah, as much as we could. There were certain things like I really wanted to climb Kilimanjaro. So, and we kind of did a little bit and we're like, all right, the fall is a good time to do that. So we'll try to be in Tanzania in the fall and plan a few things around some of those. So a lot of it was like luck that we ended up in places at good seasons and shoulder season and stuff. But a lot of it was like, all right, well, we know we want to go see this. All right, let's give ourselves a week to do whatever else happens to come up in a spot and stuff. So
So you said, you went to Finland, you knew people there. London,
yeah.
somebody wanted you to house it. So a lot of times on this travel, was your lodging, staying in somebody's room, crashing on their couch, or was it, cheap hotels and hostels or camping? Where did you lay your head down at night?
Uh, in Europe, we did a lot of cheap hostels because that's what we were trying. And it was early in the trip, so I was like, man, we can't spend money. We gotta like make it last. We gotta save all this stuff up, right? So it is a little strange being. I turned 30 while we were traveling, right? But being 29 or 30 and like being in a common hostel, like a open hostel room with 10 other people, and you're like, I'm too old for this. We need to do something different. Um, a lot of Airbnbs, you can get them pretty cheap places. We did try, there's this thing called woofing. It's worldwide or world work on organic farms or something like that, right? But essentially you trade like work somewhere for room and board, um, which some people have really good experiences with, some people have terrible experiences with. We had a not so great experience, and we had planned on trying to do it a few places, and when it didn't go great the first time, we're like, we'll figure it out. We don't need to do that to make it all work. So
So what were some other key destinations? You did Finland, London, Tanzania. What else leaps to your
so
mind?
we hit over the course of, I think we, from when we left Virginia to when we ended up moving to Grand Rapids was like 17, trying to think, we left in May, ended up here in August, so like 15 months. And I think we did 25 countries. Um, and so we did like through Europe, some of Africa, India. We had a friend in Dubai, so we went and stayed there for a little while. And then bounced around Southeast Asia, did Australia, New Zealand, um, Peru, and then came home. So
That's amazing. And okay, a couple of questions here. So I've done a fair amount of traveling in my life, but there's some places that I just don't have a lot of experience with, and one of them is the African continent. What's your summary or recap of that?
so we only were in Tanzania. We spent 5 weeks there. Um,
Oh
I would
wow.
go back in a heartbeat. The people were incredibly friendly. I thought the food was good. It's cheap if you're trying to not spend a ton of money. Um, we did Kilimanjaro and then did a safari. It was I would go back and absolutely yeah,
Tell
anytime.
me about Kilimanjaro. We can't just bypass that.
Uh,
How
so
tall is it? How much of a climb?
it is just under 20,000 feet at the top,
Wow,
I
okay.
think. Um, and you just it's not like it's not mountain climbing, right? Because it's relatively not steep. You just walk the whole
Okay.
time. And so in Swahili, pole pole means slowly. And that's what they tell you from the start. Everybody's like pole pole, pole pole over and over again. And the first day
What
you
I
like,
say during my workouts.
yeah, exactly. I joke with my wife. We still joke about that sometimes. But so you just walk. We did, it was 5 days walking up and then 2 days down because we had the time. So you can do it in like, I think the shortest tour you can book is like 3 days total. You do it up in two and down in one, which a lot of people get altitude sickness. And we're like, we have the time. I don't want to get sick. We'll do the long route around because there's a couple different trails you can hike. And
Hmm.
you have to hire porters. They're like, you can't just go by yourself. So it was my wife and I, uh, 6 porters, a cook, a guide, and an assistant guide, I think. So there were like 9 or 10 people with us on this like
Okay.
week long hike. Um, and it's crazy because you like get up in the morning, they serve you food, and then you like slowly get yourself together. They pack everything up. You start walking. The porters run by you with all your stuff, get to the next camp, or like get to wherever you're gonna have lunch. The cook will make some stuff. You get there, eat, they take off again, and then you get there and your tent set up and all of your
That's
stuff's ready
amazing.
to go. And yeah,
So you'd highly recommend it.
if you're not super susceptible to altitude sickness and you like hiking, it is I thought it was great. You get like the last day they wake you up at midnight so that you hit the peak sometime around sunrise and then can come back down.
That was going to be my question because I live in Washington State and we've got Mount Rainier like 45 minutes from here. Not that it's Kilimanjaro,
Yeah,
but if you get to the top, and by the way, I've never been to the top, I've heard the views are spectacular. Plenty of friends
yeah,
have shown me photos, but it's so cloudy here. You might put all that effort in, and you've
yeah,
got at best a 50-50 chance of getting screwed over to seeing absolutely nothing.
yeah.
What's that roll of the dice at like a Kilimanjaro? Can you basically count on a great view?
I think it depends on the season. And so like if you're gonna have a good experience or not, like because there's dry season where there's like your chances of having clouds are really low, and then I think rainy season would be the opposite.
Gotcha.
Um,
Okay.
and so we got lucky. It was just like we could get there in the fall, and that's when it would work out, and was a really actually a good time to go. So we had some great views, and because we took our time, like you had time to then like when we're partway up, you're still way higher because Kilimanjaro's not like in a real mountain range. It's like there's two mountains there, and then it's savanna pretty much for the most part. So like once you're up, you have some pretty big sweeping vistas. And so even if you had a good day and it wasn't the day you were going to the top, you still got some of that. But
Okay.
the morning they wake us up, we go up and there's like one last really steep climb. And then at the top, it's like another half a mile that's pretty much almost at the same altitude to like get around the peak at the top to get to the very highest point. And they kind of mislead you. They're like, we're almost there, we're almost there. And then you get there and they're like, oh, we got another half a mile to walk. But we got to that point, and my wife was like having some really bad altitude sickness. We almost turned around. She's like, no, we can do it. So we do that walk. I'm pretty much holding her on one side, the guide's holding her on the other. We like do that, get our pictures, all of that fun stuff. We come back down and we get back down to our tent, and she's like, what were those like little chipmunks that were running around? They were like getting really close to our feet, running all around the top. And I was like, there wasn't anything up there.
That's amazing.
She's like, oh, no, no, there was like all these little furry creatures. I'm like, oh boy.
Yep. Yep. The wonders of altitude. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So would that have been, I guess, what was the highlight of the trip? Was that the highlight or something else?
Uh, I really enjoyed that, but I think trying to think. So everybody's always like, what's the favorite place? And there's
Mhm.
like it's really hard to narrow that down. I had a really, really good time in Vietnam.
I've
Um,
never been there either.
we had some friends meet us there. And we just had a blast. We ended up going back a few years after we were done traveling too. And so like I think for me, because it's so different and right, I'm a pretty average sized person. I can blend in pretty much anywhere in America, and you go and you're like, I cannot blend in anywhere
Right.
here. I'm in a very different, and everything is just different. And for me, that was like a really awesome experience that I think is
Are you
huge.
adventurous? Are you adventurous with the cuisines?
I am now. I'll eat anything now.
Did it generally treat you well, or did you have some upset stomachs?
In a few places, I think like India is one of those places that everybody's either like loves or hates, or like it seems very polarizing. And it's just a little harder sometimes. Like there's a lot of people and a lot of stuff. So it's really easy to get sick there. We got sick there a little bit, but for the most part, we got pretty lucky with that too, of nothing super serious anywhere.
And how you went to so many different countries, how was it to bounce around? And obviously you don't speak all of those languages. Was communication difficult, or could you get by with somebody speaking English somewhere?
We are incredibly lucky that we all speak English because it's the language of the world pretty much, right? So like virtually everywhere you can get by. We always tried to learn like hello, goodbye, thank you,
Mhm.
maybe a few other key phrases. If we were going to be somewhere longer, try to learn a few other things. Like we were in Tanzania long enough, like learned a few numbers and a few other things. So you could go to a market,
Okay.
like they try to sell you something and you're like, no, I know it should be this much. And then they just start laughing because you actually could like speak a little bit, or like they would appreciate it and not try to swindle you out as much money and stuff. So like
Right.
it, I think learning a little bit of a language goes a long way, even if they just kind of laugh at you and you're like, nice try, let's speak
100%.
English. But
Yeah,
it really
100%.
helps.
That's been around Latin America, my experience as well. If you just attempt to speak the local language, most
Yeah.
people find it so awesome and they're
Mhm.
welcoming, and it's just like it lowers if there were any barriers or whatever. Like it's all of a sudden like, ah,
Yeah.
we're cool. Like
Yeah.
let's get did
Yeah.
you, I mean, you said 15 months, that's incredible. Did you, fly back to the US and the wheels hit the tarmac just as like the last nickel goes out of your checking account and you're just pouring sweat? You're like, we're screwed on Monday. Like did you have to go back and just scramble to get on LinkedIn and find a job and how to work?
So I was starting to look for stuff before we were even back because I was worried about it. We were fine, and we had been very conservative about what we did too, right? So like when we sold our cars when we left, we put all that money in a separate spot, and we're like, this way we can buy a car when we come back, and we don't have to worry about
Oh,
having a car
that's
payment and that
smart.
stuff, right? So like
That's smart.
we had a little bit of a rainy day fund set of like, hey, we can put a security deposit on an apartment, we can buy a car, we can do that stuff when we come back. We're not starting at zero. Um, and then we ended up in Grand Rapids because my wife, despite me searching first, my wife found essentially her dream job here and was like, that's where we should go. It's like, all right, let's go. Um, so uh, it was close. She's from the other side of Michigan. I'm from Ohio. So it's like close enough, not too close. Kind of checked a lot of boxes. So
Okay, very cool. Man, thank you for sharing that. That's I mean, I think everybody should be lucky enough or blessed enough or fortunate enough to have some sort of experience like that over the course of their lifetime. I mean,
yeah.
it is an adventure of a lifetime, like
Oh,
literally.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We're very, very fortunate. And I think, right, the world isn't as scary as often it gets made out to be, right? Like once you're out there, like that's what I try to tell everybody. And they're like,
100% true.
just go somewhere. Doesn't matter where. So
I've been to some places where I won't say the names of the countries as to not offend people, but I've been to some places where they don't like Americans. Let's just say that.
yeah,
And, if I'm talking to the locals and initially there's a little bit of tension either in the native language or with an interpreter, and they're like, we hate Americans. I'm like, all right, cool. And we get to what that actually means, and they're like, we hate your politicians. I'm like, so do we.
yeah,
And then everybody
exactly.
laughs, and there's just common ground, and we're all
Yeah,
friends again.
yeah,
And the world, like you said, is actually pretty cool. You
yeah,
can go to almost anywhere, and if you're down to earth and genuine and transparent, people are
yeah,
pretty darn cool usually.
yeah, yeah,
That's that's been my experience.
yeah.
So you've been doing CrossFit forever, you're a world traveler, got this all the stuff going on, and what in all of your years of CrossFit and training led you to Linchpin?
Uh, Man, I was following Linchpin a long time ago. I think when you first started programming for whatever reason, right? Like I
Okay.
think when early 2010, the early tens, right? Like there wasn't a lot of
Oh wow, okay.
online
Yeah,
stuff out there, right? Like there wasn't a ton. And so you kind of could watch everything without a ton of bandwidth, right?
that's quite
And,
true actually. Yeah.
uh, and so I kind of had seen who you were and some of that stuff. Um, and then had always been at a gym. And so unfortunately our local gym here, um, that I was coaching at and we had been members at for several years closed during COVID. Um,
Mm,
and so then it was like, all right, now what are we going to do? And we bought a ton of stuff from them, luckily set our whole nice garage gym up because of that. But then it was like, all right, well, now what? And I was like, well, it's a no-brainer for me. I'm going to go just start following Linchpin because I know the way Pat programs and everything that like is there is an easier thing to follow. And then we ended up having our daughter who's now almost 3. And so going back to, I would love to go back and do an affiliate sometime because I miss social hour as much as anything else.
hmm.
But right now in our lives, the like I work from home too, so I don't have a commute. So the fact of driving anywhere, I'm like, I don't really want to make the time to drive 15 minutes to go spend an hour somewhere to lose another 15 minutes to come home and all that. So it's just so much easier to be doing everything here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because people ask me, and I think they think because I have Linchpin that I'll have nothing good to say about any other sort of experience, but that's not true. Like it's a huge world out there. It's a huge fitness world with, hundreds of millions of people. It's a
Yeah.
huge strength and conditioning world. And so there's millions and millions and millions of people that it works for their life to drive
Yeah.
somewhere and, you know, pay the fee associated with that and drive back home. And there's
Yeah.
millions that doesn't work. Like
Yeah.
there's something for everybody, and everyone might
Yeah.
actually be in one or another in different phases of their life. Like that's just
Yeah.
the real world, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is. So
Yeah.
how have you found working from home and then having to have, you must be somewhat of a disciplined self-starter sort of a person, because if you don't, Linchpin's an amazing community and you can lean on the community and the BTWB squads and the private Facebook group, and you can find as much community, real meaningful community as you want. But there's still some degree of like, you got to get out there and walk into the garage. And so is that something which you struggle with, or it's not that bad for you?
It just depends on the day. But I think for me, most days, if I want to work out during the week, I have to get up at 5:30 before everybody else is awake and go get
Okay.
it in. Otherwise, it's just not, life is going to happen and it's just not going to happen. Um, and so there are a lot of mornings where I snooze longer than I would like to admit. Um, or the workout's not as good as I had planned, or I don't do everything. But like it's right now, seasons of life, like you said, it's anything is better than nothing. So if I can get out in the garage a couple mornings a week, and then usually I try to hit Saturday and Sunday a little bit more of a full workout, a little bit better because we have a little more time on the weekends and can get that in. Um, it's just anything I can do, right? And
You're golden, man. I mean, if you've got,
yeah,
I think if you got 30 minutes a day,
yeah,
it'd be great to have more time for a heavy day,
yeah,
without a doubt. But if life is like, hey, I'm giving you 30 minutes and that's it, you can make it happen. You can get in there with the dumbbells, you can get in there with a lighter load and do higher rep work. Like,
yeah,
you can do it. And as long as you don't just, eat like a maniacal lunatic all day long,
yeah,
then you're going to be fine, really, quite frankly.
yeah,
Like, and then when
yeah,
you get a bit more time, cool.
yeah. For everything I want to do right now, am I in the best shape of my life? No, but I'm in pretty good shape for anything that comes up, right? And it just depends. Monday was I threw my weight vest on and cut the grass because that's what I was going to have time to do, right? So you get something in, and that's all you can do.
Good for you. And so you said your daughter was actually born in the same day as mine, huh?
Yeah, yep, yeah, June 29th, right? So
Yeah, June 29th. And so the 3-year-old birthday coming up?
yeah, somehow not really sure how that happened, but
No joke. 100, I
yeah,
mean 100%. It's amazing that something like that, in my mind anyway, seems at the same time to be both a long period of time and a short period of time.
oh yeah, yeah,
You know,
because we I don't know how your daughter is at sleeping. Our daughter is a terrible sleeper, has been
oh
her whole life, right?
no.
So I still we're going on 3 years of I haven't gotten 7 nights in a row of uninterrupted sleep. So like
Oh,
there are times where I'm like, this is unbelievably long. And then I'll see a picture and I'm like, oh yeah, that was like 2 months ago. And you're like, no, that was a year and a half ago. Like, so
right.
it just flies.
Oh, is she just restless, or is she up a couple times during the night, or what?
So I think, well, really she tends to wake up and it's getting, fingers crossed, knock on wood, right? Don't jinx myself. It's getting better and better. We are finding that the more and more structure we can put in place, and like the better, she's getting old enough you can have conversations about stuff. We bought one of the alarm clocks that like changes color in the morning, so she knows when she got to pick, it turns purple in the morning. When the purple light turns on, she knows it's like okay to be up. So things
Oh,
are
that's
helping.
cool.
Yeah. So like sometimes she'll wake up. Most mornings she's pretty good now. So it'll like she knows even if she wakes up before it's 6:45, the light turns purple, and she knows that's when it's okay to come get mom and dad. Um,
Oh, I didn't. That's so smart. I didn't know that she's in a bed now, not in a crib.
yeah. Yeah. So we transitioned to a bed a little early, but my wife tore her ACL in November. And so a few days before Christmas, she had surgery and she was like, if she's in a crib and for some reason we have to do something, she's like, I won't be able to get her out of the crib.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like, all right, well, I guess we're going to a bed now.
Yeah.
Like I can
Yeah.
figure out making her get herself down the stairs. We can do that. But I can't, if I can't get her out of the crib, we're in trouble. So
Yeah. My daughter's in a bed now. It hasn't been that long. I think she's only been in bed now for like a month or so, or
yeah,
or whatnot.
she adventurous. She come like just wake up and come in and see you.
She's actually doing pretty darn good about that. I can't complain. She's a pretty good sleeper. Her two brothers, who are 12 and 14, they're good sleepers too. Emily's a great sleeper. I'm not a good sleeper.
Yeah,
And so I think the only thing she got from me is once she falls asleep, she's generally pretty good,
yeah,
but it might take her a while to fall asleep. I think what she did get from me, I think she got the good sleeping part of them, but I'm kind of a low sleep needs, probably not healthy.
yeah,
And I think she, even for like a toddler, is kind of on the low. You're like, how are you not tired? And then in the morning, like you're not cranky, like you just didn't need more sleep than that.
yeah,
So that's what that is. But you're right, it's funny because sometimes like the days are so long, like
yeah,
an hour takes 100 years. But then you look back and you're like, how did the last 3 years just rip by?
yeah.
And with all the frustrations that there are at at this current age, there's also some amazing things, because I look, they always say the toughest stage of parenting is whichever one you're in currently.
Right.
I look to our 12-year-old and our 14-year-old, and that phase in life, sad as it is, like parents aren't cool anymore. Like they don't want to be with you, they want to be with somebody else. So at least when I'm with my little 3-year-old, she thinks I'm really cool. And like she,
Yeah,
is all into me and like wants to be with me. So I have to give myself, I'm like, you know what? This is gonna like I could see down the road that one time I'd be like, hey, do you want to? She'd be like, no, I'm going with my friends. And I'd be like, oh, well, that kind of sucks. So I try to like frame that in my head.
yeah. You try to have that perspective when they're like you're trying to do something in the kitchen and they're just latched onto your leg and are like, "Come hang out." Yeah,
Yep, no, that's 100%. But yeah, man, well, I appreciate you sharing your a bit of your story, your journey, your adventure, and we didn't
yeah.
talk about Lynchpin, but I don't care. What we talked about was way more interesting as far as I'm concerned. What would be your kind of parting thoughts, either to anybody in the community or just anybody watching this who, maybe wants to just start making fitness a higher priority in their life, but maybe they feel like, well, I got a kid too, and I got a busy job, and life's hectic.
Oh man. Anything is better than nothing, and it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Like it took me a long time of 14 years of CrossFit to like figure that out, that just going and doing something, it doesn't really matter what it is, and once you're out there, it'll be better than not, right? Because I used to be in the, oh well, I don't have an hour and 15 minutes anymore.
Mm,
That 5x5 back squat's not going to happen today. We might as well just scratch the day, like it, right? Like that whole, I'm like, I've got 45 minutes. This is going to be a good day. Um,
100%.
so it's that perspective, I think, and just the not worrying about what you used to be able to do, right? Seasons of life. I'm
Oh,
a big fan of the scaled workouts now, and I've been doing CrossFit for 14 years. Like I have no shame in being like, what's the scaled option today? Yep, doing that. Like we can go knock that out and it'll be fine. I don't like no worries. So that like, oh, I need to be doing this, or I should have double unders, or I should be able to whatever. Like none of that really matters.
so true, man. So true. And if all of us stick around and we work out for the rest of our lives, forever and ever and ever and ever, to your old and gray,
Yeah,
all of us are moving towards the scaled option.
yeah,
Like it's that's it's just what father time doesn't care.
yeah,
If you're still one of those amazing beasts that at 72, you're like, I did 8 rounds of Cindy today. Like, that's amazing. Like it's we're all moving. Like I did ring rows. You're like, you're 72, you did ring rows. You're incredible. Like
yeah,
we're all it's just gotta keep, man. You just gotta keep
yeah.
keep the engine moving.
Absolutely.
Well, Jeff, again, I appreciate it, brother. And
Yeah,
yeah, keep doing your thing, and I'll see you in the community.
sounds good. Thanks, Pat.